Hello, everybody. This is Sarah Colado with Architecture Talk Tongue. I am really excited because we're having this full cycle moment today. I have Kellie Nolan with me, who is actually, I would say, the second half of Archmark. And if you guys have been listening to my podcast for a while, the first ever guest I introduced and kickstarted the podcast with is actually Kellie's partner, Brian McCartney, who is, I would say, more of a face of the firm than Kellie is. Kellie stays in the background, and she has admitted to me this is her first interview, which I'm very honored by. Thank you so much for
I'm so
giving me this
excited.
interview and your time of the day. And I'm super excited to host you, Kellie. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Excellent. So perhaps we can start with a little introduction. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and Archmark before we get into the meat of the of this meeting?
I'll try to do the short version. So I am kind of a career marketing communications person, and Brian and I together, he came up through design in university. He was a design student, graphic design. And I came up through communications and written and spoken communications. And we got together, and we were both in corporate jobs at the time when we met. And after a while, he spun off and did his own thing and then asked me if I wanted to join him. And that's when we started business together. That was over 15 years ago. And about 6 years ago, I want to say, we were fortunate enough to start working with an architect, and we loved the experience of working with an architect. And we thought, well, let's do this more. Like, let's find another architect to work with. And that's where Archmark was born, is that we saw very quickly that we understood a bit the process that architects use when they approach their work. And it very much matched up to the way we work with our clients. Digging in to find out what they need, what they really need, what do they want, and matching that up to what we can deliver for them. And so Archmark was born, and we've been at it, and we love it, and we love helping architects find ways of communicating their value and demonstrating their authority in the market to attract more of their ideal future clients.
I love this, and it's such a clear and beautiful mission. So tell me a little bit more about this creative process of working with architects. I mean, I'm guessing that, that there was something in it that got you to decide, okay, really love working with architects, going to focus only on that. But yeah, I think that when you're focusing on projects and you're working with creative people that really want to deliver their vision, but in the same time, they're like caught up with the ideas of like how this design changes things. I mean, there's so many stories to tell around our designs. So I'm guessing it's, even though it's very creative, it's somewhat challenging to bring it down to like the core message. But there must have been a lot of passion for you to decide to follow up with this. So tell me a little bit more about like, what is it like to work with architects on their messages, and what attracted you specifically to focus on architects?
And I think you know exactly what those challenges are yourself. We do a lot of that. I think, to take a step back, one of the things that both Brian and I really appreciate about architects and just simply what they do and their impact on the world is that they have such significant impact on shaping our lives and our experience in the world. And it doesn't matter if we are at work, at school, at home, at a football game, shopping. An architect was involved in shaping how we experience that time, that moment, that space. And yet, the more we talk to architects, the more we found that they don't know how to express that. There was a tendency to be fairly passive in the way that they market themselves, and a lot of reliance on referrals, without much of a plan for what happens when that contractor who used to send me a lot of referrals retires. What happens when this business closes and I no longer have those referrals? So we could see that the marketing, our approach to marketing fit really well with what architects needed. And we very much began to focus in on primarily architects who work in high-end residential is where we've landed. I want to say it's a really nice fit. And also those firms that are fairly well established and are looking to level up, are looking to get that much better at what they do. Stop having to take the projects that help pay the bills, but that they really don't even want to show the world that they've done it because it's not really what they want to do. So part of that messaging question we were talking about is, how do you help architects talk about themselves in a way that they attract more of the right perfect fit clients with the kind of projects that they want to get out of bed and do in the morning, that keep them going, that do more than pay the bills, that show the world their value and what they really can bring to the space we all live in.
I love this. And I think that, it's super important because it's a well-known fact that we've not been encouraged and even had prohibition around marketing as architects. And so therefore we heavily relied on referrals because that was the only way we could get clients. And it does work, of course, especially if you're like working, already with certain established clients, or you establish your name in a certain geolocation. But it's very hard to get there. It's not immediate that you can rely on referrals. And also it's very hard to diversify. Once you rely on referrals, that means that people that probably came for a certain service to you will refer you to a very similar service. If it's residential, probably get more residential clients through that. But it's probably not so applicable if you want to actually diversify, say start building hospitals or, I don't know, office buildings. I doubt that that's the best way to get work. And so therefore there is definitely limitations to that.
There are. And I think the other thing is you're leaving it up to someone else to represent you. You're leaving it up to someone else to translate what they think you stand for, what they think you do from whatever their experience with you was. So maybe it was a residential project but they had a different experience than the next person might have. So the way they represent you and the referral they bring you might be completely off base. So it can't be that passive. If you want to use referrals, you need to be more proactive about it and more purposeful. I kind of have my lineup of five things that I look to help clients adopt. Maybe it's a mindset shift or just a specific way to approach it. And it's small changes in some cases, and in other cases, it's big changes.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that given the fact that our work delivery takes years often, we can not only always count that we have the best experiences with every single project and every single client. So therefore, that's where like the referral experience is questionable. And then I imagine it takes extra guts and to raise your fees on people that are either returning customers or referred customers, because if you build someone a project and then you decided, okay, I want to start charging more because I went through that shift of realizing that I'm worth more. How do you bring it up, that message to a client that's coming back to you or referred a friend or a neighbor? It's kind of an uncomfortable place to be in. And so having that as a 100% way of obtaining clients, it's definitely a tough strategy to stick to. So tell us a little bit about what's a better solution, or what should architects think about to sort of at least diversify their efforts for client acquisition?
I think, and I know that this is something that you talk about a lot, and I totally agree, because like I was saying, first of all, they need to be proactive. This is not a passive, marketing cannot be passive. It has to be active. You need to be engaged and involved in marketing. And whether under the umbrella of marketing you put into that local networking, if you put into that reaching out to past clients to check in and see how things are going, and hey, can you send me a referral? But becoming more engaged and proactive about doing that, and then being more purposeful about it. So having real clarity about what are your goals for marketing, what do you expect it to deliver, who are you talking to, and this is, I think, one of those things where often we find working with clients who come to us, they can do anything for anyone, is the mindset, because of the fear of saying no to something and passing up the chance to do work that would pay. I get that. We've been there ourselves. We've started a few businesses, a few of our own marketing firms over the years. And that's always the scary trap that is so easy to fall in. And I think anyone who's being honest will admit that they did it from the beginning and eventually work their way out of it. But the secret to working your way out of having to take whatever work comes your way is to get clear about who is that ideal client, to think about the people that you've worked with and the projects that you got to do that did get you excited, and talk in a way that brings you more of that. Be willing to say, you know what? I don't really do that, but I know someone who does. Or let's really take a look at what it is you're asking for, because normally I don't do that kind of work, but I'm interested in your project. At least start to define what it is you do in a way that you're the one explaining it to someone. They're not coming to you placing an order. You don't offer a menu of things. You have something of tremendous value. And so be sure you present it in a way that demonstrates that value.
And I think that being clear on that also puts a certain clarity as to perhaps the value of actually working with an architect for your client, because there is this misconception. And I think that a lot of times the sort of journey of like how clients come about having to hire an architect is like, if someone says you need to get a building permit, or you have to hire an architect to get that kitchen done, or like an extension done. And so they're specifically coming for like almost a drawing or a set of documents to be filled in, whatever. The ideal case scenario is that they actually hire us for our visionary ability to implement a building. But the percentage of that really is in comparison to all the other practical reasons why clients come through the door. And so if they have a misconception about what we really bring to the table and you don't communicate that, you end up actually being treated like a draftsman. And I think that that's the biggest pain point for architects, is like, oh my God, so they just want us to come in and build draw and build something that is, specific, and without hiring us for what we're unique. So speaking to that passion, how do architects find what drives them? I mean, I know that you probably have a set of like workshops, and it takes a moment to guide an architect towards that. I'm not telling you to like disclose the whole process, but like, what is important for someone to even realize? Like, why would I go through that process in the first place? What can that process give me?
So I do think that it is important to take the time to work through that and to find out what it is that you as that individual architect brings to it. To be honest, to be personal. There seems to be a perception that, well, we all do the same thing. We all work more or less the same way. No, you don't. Or you wouldn't be in business. You wouldn't have chosen to be an architect if you were just going to be like everybody else. So stop trying to be like another architect. Be you. And make it personal. Talk in depth. Talk about the problems you solve. Because that's what people don't understand. They think, like you just said, they think the problem you solve is you can help me get a permit. Well, no, actually, you need me before you need a permit. You need to hire an architect up front so that we can imagine the possibilities. We can look at the limitations, and we can come up with a solution that will work to not only fix the problems that you're aware you have, but change things that you don't even realize are points of friction in your life. But better design can make it better. And architects don't talk about that. They put up a lot of pictures on their websites, and it's always the finished product, always the finished building. There seems to be a hesitation to show the work that went into getting to that point. So it's no wonder that the audience doesn't understand what architects do, because they're not showing what they do.
I love that. Wow.
It's not the stock photo of the architect with a rolled up blueprint and a hard hat on the construction site. There's so much more before that point, before the site visit. And so I think it's incredibly important to making that message personal. Whether you played with Legos as a kid and were building forts out of cardboard boxes and knew that you needed to build things in the future and design and move things around, or whether you had a high school teacher who turned you on to the idea that, you're really good in math and technical stuff, but you have this great creative side, architecture would be a really interesting pursuit for you. Whatever it was that sparked that interest is part of what keeps you going. So talk about it. That authentic, personal side of you is what will attract people that will appreciate the value you bring to it, but also be good clients to work with, who will be willing to have you lead the show.
Absolutely, I agree with it, and it's really fascinating that it kind of allows us to connect to like the true meaning of why we're here and what we're doing, and actually like lead with that. And that kind of brings me to my next question. I promise we're gonna talk a little bit about building authority. We talked now about connecting to passion and becoming your unique self and bringing that forward. How can now that elevate you and help you build authority, which essentially is how people perceive you as well?
Sure. And I think the authority comes in being able to tell the stories behind the projects that you show. That's part of it. So again, going back to the idea of talk about the problem you solved and how you solved it. And then also being willing to answer questions up front. Don't hold back the answers that people are asking as they're doing their research on, do I need an architect? When do I hire an architect? Can't I just work with a builder? What do architects do? People are researching that. They're going to Google and they're typing those questions in all the time. Is there an architect near me? And using websites, using the content on your websites to help answer those questions and show that you are the authority on answering that question. Because trust me, not every other architect in your neighborhood is doing that. So if you're the one who gets out there and does it, you're more likely to get found by the people who are searching for that information. At the same time as that helps you build authority, it also helps people understand who you are, how you work, what you do in such a way that it's clear to them that, hey, they could be a really good fit for what I do. I could be a good fit for what they do. Or, that sounds like it might be more than I'm getting into. Or that sounds like maybe it's not enough. I'll find out. So be willing to use your authority and talk about things that first answer those immediate questions, and then think about the questions that clients ask once they're your clients and you're starting a project. In the middle of the project, where are the pain points for your clients? And use your blog to answer some of those questions in a general way to help people get comfortable with with your authority. Get
Mm-hmm.
comfortable asking you questions. I think sometimes it's very easy to, there's the dog, Lucky, come here. Come here. I think it's easy to forget that this is a long-term relationship that you're trying to build from the beginning. This isn't a go on the first date, get married the next day. This is going to take time up front before you go from that initial contact with the prospect to having a client on board and working with you on a regular basis. And so understanding that they need to trust you. They need to first know you, they need to like you, and they need to trust you. And your authority plays into winning them over at each of those stages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I love that sort of example that you gave with the dating, because it's true. What's even more important is not to shy away from actually leading with your expertise. You spoke about answering questions related to pain points and understanding what your client is going through as they're looking for an architect, what kind of problems they might be encountering, what doubts do they have, questions that arise, that they need answering. So kind of being that few steps ahead of them and presenting yourself as like a go-to person that is comfortable to answer and help out before the deal is sealed, so to speak. And I love that. And I certainly, with any service or any business, I love to encounter a person that can help answer my questions. And the moment I feel comfortable, because that sort of initial fear or whatever is confronted and soothed by an expert, then I most likely will call that person to keep working with them. And I think that that's something that people don't understand. And I found that a lot of times also in like a medical field, that people want to charge you for a consultation ahead of time. But it's like, I'm asking a simple question like, what does this certain thing do? Or like, will I be safe? How long will it take me to recover? Whatever, simple questions, right? And if they say, we will answer it on our paid consultation, it's the moment where I'm like, you just want money from me. I mean, clearly I'm just a really preoccupied person here. In this respect, my health is of value. And just to obtain that information, I'm looking for comfort. I'm not even like, I'm looking for comfort. And so it doesn't feel comfortable to be paying upfront for this sometimes. Like, it's just give tiny bit away. I'm not saying give your services away for free. I'm saying do cherish that relationship with people. I think it really matters. But the step two, which is important of the authority setting, and I wanted to ask you a little bit more, is not shying away from actually giving away your knowledge in that blog or in any other way, to show what you're interested in, publishing research, perhaps, and a little bit more of the story that goes into your building. Because we like to put on our website, oh, I'm LEED certified. What does that mean? I mean, that clearly means to me, as I'm also an architect and I know what LEED stands for, that you care about the environment. But did you communicate that to your clients? I mean, a lot of those people might not realize what that certification means. But if you're passionate about saving the environment, why don't you tell stories of how you do that on your projects, right? Like, or what research goes into designing LEED certified buildings. Like, that is fascinating to me. And it doesn't have to be scientific. It can be simple stories, but integrating that into that sort of communication, right? That you lead can help like bring also customers that are interested in your mission, like behind the buildings, not just the
and that being that clear about what it is that you care about. What do you want to be about? What matters to you as an architect is going to help you attract more people who share that point of view, who want what it is that you are passionate about delivering.
Yeah.
And so don't be afraid to tackle the hard questions, to be the one who puts the tough question out there. And I think you made a really good point there about creating that sense of comfort that someone who is going to hire you as an architect to work with over the next year or two, they need to feel that they can come to you with any question, no matter how hard, complicated, embarrassing, frustrating, repetitive. It doesn't matter. Those are the questions that they need to feel they can absolutely trust you, that you'll keep them safe, that you're going to answer the question, you know the information that they need, that you've got this handled. It can't be a, hey, just trust me, I'm the doctor kind of thing. It needs to be that kind of share, like you said, share the information, tell them what they need to know, and then tell them again, and be willing to answer the question when they ask it 6 months later. Mm-hmm. But by doing that, you begin to build up that relationship. If you think of marketing as really the goal, we talk about this, Brian and I talk about this, is the goal of the website is really to start a conversation. You're not trying to sell them anything on your website. Especially in architecture, you're not selling a widget.
Yeah.
You're selling a long-term relationship to help them get a solution that they desperately want and need. And so keep that in mind, that you're just looking to start a conversation. You're looking to share information that will make them say, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. Mm-hmm. And so what we find is that blogging is a great way for architects to do this and to keep putting their voice, their authority, their expertise out there in ways that are really engaging and get found by Google. So if you want the content to be interesting and engaging for someone to read, and you also want it to be found by Google in search. So.
I like that. Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of sort of building authority, we kind of talked about the final goal being attracting clients and attracting the right type of clients. So one of my last questions to wrap up this amazing conversation would be, how do you do that really? And what are the sort of secret sauce ingredients that you need to put into the mix in order to know exactly who is it you want to attract, and, you know, and what is the outcome, so to speak, so you can really design where you're going with your firm and have control over it, not just take in everything that comes through the door and be whining and complaining how you never built what you always dreamt about building. Because unfortunately, unless you put your own work and clarity into it, it's not just gonna fall from the sky. It's and I know that you know how to achieve it, so tell us a little bit about the secret sauce for it.
The secret sauce, I think part of it is what we've talked about, is being willing to get personal, being really clear about who you're talking to and what is it they need. And when I say being clear about who you're talking to, one of the first workshops that we do with a new client digs into who is their ideal future client and what is the path that they're going to take, first to find you, but then once they found you and engage with you, what does that look like? And understanding what that person is thinking about and looking for, and why, really understanding the why and being able to address that can be addressed in copy on a website in some ways. And then looking at ways of, like I said, blogging is good, but that takes some persistence. That has to become a routine. And then being patient and looking for ways to nurture the contacts that you've had. So, and I skipped a part there, being willing to say no when it's a really wrong fit. And the first time that somebody says no, it's scary. Mm-hmm. And I believe that what people find as they go along is that the more clear they are about who is the right client, the easier it is to say no when the red flags go up about a wrong client.
Mm-hmm.
One of the exercises that we'll take a client through is to talk about the best project you've ever worked on. Tell us about that client. Why was that client such a good client? What was it about their character, their personality, the way they came to you, the way they worked with you? What were the questions that they asked? What did they come to you needing to know? All of those things. Now, imagine if we could clone that client. Would you want to do any work they bring you, or would it be more that same type of project? Now get clear about the type of project. If you don't want to do extensions and you only want to do new builds, are you in the right place for that? Does it make sense for where you are? I know in London, for example, that there's not a lot of property to build brand new on anymore. And so extensions are a big deal. That's one way to get more space where you are. And similarly, if someone's in a space that they really like, in a neighborhood they really like, it makes more sense to maybe do a major renovation and remodel on a home than it does to try to find a new piece of bare land to start from scratch. But the more clarity there is around who is it you're talking to, what are they searching for, the more likely it is that when that person lands on your website, they're going to say, yay, I found my architect.
Yeah.
And then they're going to look to engage with you in different ways. So that might be downloading, you're getting ready to work on with an architect checklist. Don't expect the call and the sale to follow up right away. Take your time to build your authority with them and to engage in small conversations with them. That can be by email. It can be through downloads. It can be through the blog. But exercising some patience, because while the internet seems to deliver everything instantly, it still takes time to build up those relationships.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this well of knowledge. I love it. I love how heartfelt your answers were as well. And I think we got a lot of beautiful advice. So it was just an honor hosting you in Architecture Talk Tank. So I did drop archmark.co website in the description of this podcast. But I suggest also to find Kellie Nolan with this name on LinkedIn and connect and follow Archmark, who this week actually the LinkedIn page hit 1,000 followers. So guys, I really encourage and invite you to follow the page on LinkedIn as well. Is there anything else that we can encourage people to do to get involved and engaged?
I think, like I said at the beginning, just be proactive about it. Don't wait for it to come to you.
Excellent. I love that.
Reach out. Let's get in touch. Let's talk. And this was an absolute delight. I so enjoyed having the chance to talk with you, Sarah. I really appreciate it.
Me too. Me too. I love connecting with the feminine part of Archmark. And actually, to that note, I wanted to just quickly drop in a note about the fact that we started to promote our women's special edition of Disrupt Symposium, which is coming up 8th of March, and we have hours of streaming. We're starting from the morning and going all the way till the evening. We're going to have 15 guests presenting, all women, powerful, beautiful, incredibly light, bright, and talented woman in architecture. And to anyone who has been a part of Heroes of Architecture, my first event that I organized, I guess now 2 years back, for Women of Architecture. This is like Heroes of Architecture, but only better, because we've grown since there. Since then, we have more interesting connections, and as well, the community is larger. But we do want to engage a lot of networking and Q&As and an active chat. So therefore, the community will be nourished throughout the event. And I really hope to, for this event also to give a special attention to the leadership and any necessities that women in architecture have. There's a lot of stories that we've been nourishing along the years of how the industry is male dominated. And I think we can talk to that, but also find our own core as to what makes us unique as women architects and encourage that really. And so I'm inviting to stage a lot of women that do not subscribe to this story and to create their own beautiful reality that is empowered. And we're going to really share some beautiful stories of how women led their practices to success by choosing right and following their heart. And so looking forward to this event. The full lineup is fully confirmed. All you have to do is go to disruptsymposium.com and sign up and join us. So that's that. Thank you, Kellie, again for joining. And thank you guys for listening and tuning in. And we'll see you soon. Ciao.